Israel has carried out a major and highly anticipated series of airstrikes against Iran in retaliation for Iran's attack on Israel at the start of the month. This is video from Tehran, and it shows missiles being intercepted by anti-aircraft fire early this morning. The Iranian army says that 2 of its soldiers were killed in the attacks. The Israeli military said it hit, quote, precise military targets and did not include energy infrastructure. It also said that the strikes against Iran are over.
We conducted targeted and precise strikes on military targets in Iran, thwarting immediate threats to the state of Israel. The Israel Defense Forces has fulfilled its mission. If the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we will be obligated to respond.
The White House said that it was not involved with the Israeli attack and responded to news of the strikes by urging Iran to not further escalate, saying the United States was not a participant in this operation. It is our aim to accelerate diplomacy and de-escalate tensions in the Middle East region. We urge Iran to cease its attacks on Israel so that this cycle of fighting can end without further escalation. We have live team coverage of Israel's retaliatory strike on Iran. Our Christiane Amanpour and Julia Benbrook are standing by. We begin, though, with Matthew Chance in Jerusalem for us. And Matthew, you've been following all of the developments this morning. Iran says the strikes caused limited damage. That statement alone suggests that perhaps we can expect a more muted response from Iran, if any at all. What more do we know about the damage from these strikes?
Well, the Iranians say that they reserve the right to respond. Whether they will or won't, I mean, we just don't know at this stage. But look, I mean, I think the fact that limited damage was sustained was intentional on the part of the Israelis. They didn't want to, kind of go all out and attack, for instance, nuclear research facilities or energy infrastructure facilities, and they kept the targeting to military sites. And so what the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli military say that they struck were missile production facilities, aerial defense batteries, surface-to-air missile installations, things like that, designed, according to Israeli military officials that I've spoken to this morning, to send a message to Iran, as a response to the attack that was carried out by Iran on October the 1st, with hundreds of missiles being thrown at Israel's air defences. So it was a message, it was symbolic on one hand. On the other hand, what the Israeli defence officials are telling me is that it was also a very practical set of strikes because it degraded Iran's ability to carry out air defence, kind of operations and to strike Israel in the future. And it sets the scene, according to Israeli military officials, for a future possible strike that would allow Israel to operate more freely, they say, inside Iranian airspace. But there's no getting away from it. This could have been much broader, much wider. In fact, it was quite narrow, targeted just at those military installations. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in terms of what the Iranian response will be.
All right, Matthew Chance, thank you. Let's bring in now CNN's Julia Benbrook joining us from Washington. Israel has said that it's ended the retaliatory strikes against Iran. What's the view from the White House? We understand that they're asking Iran not to escalate this any further.
For them, this is about de-escalation, and President Joe Biden was briefed on Israel's retaliatory strikes against Iran multiple times last night, and he has been closely following developments. And the White House has made it clear they were not a part of this operation, but a senior U.S. administration official says that Biden had encouraged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to design an attack that would deter future attacks against Israel. And in recent weeks, the United States had urged Netanyahu to exercise restraint and avoid striking Iran's oil and nuclear assets. And by avoiding striking those areas, Israel is opening the door, potentially, for de-escalation. Of course, we will see how or if Iran responds. Now, I did want to pull up a statement from a White House national security spokesperson who said Israel has announced that their response to Iran's ballistic missile attack on October 1st is now complete. As the Israelis have stated, their response was an exercise in self-defense and specifically avoided populated areas and focused solely on military targets, contrary to Iran's attack against Israel that targeted Israel's most populous city. Now, the White House is urging Iran to cease its attacks and end this cycle of fighting.
All right, Julia Benbrook, thank you so much. Let's turn to CNN Chief International Anchor Christiane Amanpour joining us now with more. So, Christiane, I am told from senior Israeli officials that they do expect some sort of response from Iran. They say it could be even imminent, but they are hoping, given the limited scope of the strike by Israel and given the pressure that they expect to see from the United States and other regional players there on Iran, that response be indeed very limited and can lead to more de-escalation. Is that what you're hearing as well?
It is, but from different sources. And it's sort of like a strike, retaliation, strike. You know, it's essentially a plan that's been heavily influenced by the United States. As you see, Israel has taken, more than 3 weeks to design its so-called self-defense retaliation. And the reason I think for that is because they've been in heavy negotiations with the US to keep it in a way that doesn't massively escalate, because oil infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure would have been a whole nother level of targeting and attack and would have created so much more ripple effects around the world. That could have been seriously very, very risky. And clearly all sides decided that at this time, that is not what they wanted or needed to do right now. So what we're in is this process of reestablishing deterrence. As you know, Biana, Iran and Israel have been in this shadow war for many, many years. Iran through its proxies around Israel, Israel through its human intelligence sources and cyber inside Iran, whether blowing up centrifuges at Natanz, whether, assassinating either nuclear scientists or lately the Hamas leader. So I think what we're expecting is this response from Israel, potentially, as the others said, a small response from Iran or no response from Iran, and then for all sides to say, well, this now is reestablished deterrence for the moment. Clearly, the United States has a huge amount of interest in how this goes. They don't want a wide regional war. Iran does not want and cannot afford a full-scale attack from Israel. It is definitely the weaker partner in this, in conventional warfare. And everybody's trying to de-escalate. Meantime, Gaza is exploding and so is Lebanon. So there are more pieces of this horrible puzzle to resolve.
Of course. Let me ask you what you make of reporting from Axios that Israel sent a message to Iran Friday ahead of these retaliatory strikes. And Israel said that they made it clear to the Iranians in advance what they are going to attack in general and what they are not going to attack. How significant is that? This was obviously done through a third party.
Well, I mean, look, it's extremely, again, programmed, it's extremely telegraphed. I mean, if you go back to what happened in April when Israel attacked the Iranian mission in Damascus and killed Revolutionary Guards and other officials there, that wasn't necessarily telegraphed at all. Then Iran responded, you remember, in April with, I think back then it was 180 cruise, ballistic and drones. And the US and all its allies in Israel basically made sure that that actually didn't target anything and nobody was killed except, somebody was injured. And then you had it's just strange because each side is telegraphing the other through third parties what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. So this is clearly attempted to be calibrated. This is not all-out war. This is a series of strikes and counter-strikes that's happening around this Gaza war that's gone on for the last year now. And it's all sides telegraphing each other how far to go. Now, everybody was very worried because when Israel and Iran got into it directly, it was the first time, as I say, in 45 years of the Islamic Republic's antagonism and the militants and their militias around Israel. So this is the first time they've engaged directly in this last few months. And I think everybody's hoping that this is going to now, as I say, draw a line under it and see what happens. But as I think Matthew and the others were saying, what they struck Israel is probably significant ballistic missile infrastructure and also probably air defense infrastructure, but they didn't, it seems, go after regime targets. So no regime change, no nuclear strikes, and well, strikes on the nuclear infrastructure, and no oil infrastructure strikes.